We are here at block height 694512, and I, for one, welcome Rene and Andreas too. Let's kick this off with a very simple question. When book?
December 2021. So it's more than a year late. Apparently a plague happened. And so that's our excuse. And so our deadline was we had to get it done by the end of July or it would not be published this year in time for Christmas. So we got it done by the end of July. Phew.
Okay, sounds good. Man, I mean, you don't need to excuse anything because it's an open source effort, and you're also very experienced in writing open source books. Rene, you are also experienced in the field of open source. Nevertheless, how was it to collaborate on an open source book in times of Corona and not being able to meet each other? Yeah, just some questions about that.
Yeah, so writing a book completely in the open is certainly different than writing a paper where you are basically discussing together and when you like collaborate in the close and then you publish afterwards. And you sometimes have to make some hard decisions, right? So people come and make awesome pull requests, you read them and you think like, yeah, this is a good pull request, but it doesn't fit into what we have discussed before. And by the end of the day, we're still the authors, we still have to basically stand behind what we're doing. We have some like red thread in the book, right? So sometimes yeah, it was always heartbreaking when I basically had to close something or basically say, oh yeah, you did this, but we did this also in between time, and now you have to rebase your branch, and then people don't do this, right? So it's tricky actually to do that. Yeah.
But I really enjoyed our collaboration, and also our collaboration. Our third co-author is not here today. Olalo Shintakun, the CTO of Lightning Labs. So it's a three-person book, but I really enjoyed our collaboration. And you know, in our industry, working online and collaboratively is the norm. So everybody else was like, we all have to stop going to work and work from home. And I'm like, what? Oh, okay. That's not different. I just can't go to conferences now. So this, by the way, is the first event I've been to. Yeah, finally. Yeah. Thank you for having me. But we had a great collaboration because everybody brought, I think, a unique set of skills to the equation. And so my skill was explaining in simple English how this thing works. That's what I can do well. And so Rene provided a lot of the technical detail and the nuance and picking up on these really important points that you need in order to understand it, and being a fantastic teacher. He has a lot more experience teaching Lightning specifically than I do. I would take that and then kind of massage it into a story. And I think the result is going to be really good.
All right, this perfectly segregates or brings us to the next question I had. What is the target audience for this book? I mean, I read Mastering Bitcoin, and I also got Mastering Ethereum on the shelf, even though I never opened it, I must admit. Nevertheless, I mean, Mastering Bitcoin is yeah, more of a really technical book. What's Mastering the Lightning Network like? Is it for noobs as well as advanced users?
So I would friendly say this is kind of the epic battle that went on between Andreas and me over and over. Because I was like, yeah, let's target the master students, computer scientists, and get really technical deep, help them to understand the bowls and stuff like this. And Andreas was like, no. People, actual people need to understand the book, right? So what we currently have is we have basically two parts in the book. And the first part, I would say, is hopefully for everybody who is like what I like to call an enthusiast.
Yeah.
And the second part of the book is a much deeper dive into the protocol. It's not as deep as the bolts. Right? We don't have to like reproduce the bolts for obvious reasons. But I would hope that if a well-educated computer science student goes on and reads the second half of the book, they can afterwards go and read the bolts and actually help developing the protocol or build applications. So we kind of have a mixed audience. And I have to say the words back at this moment that Andreas said. The collaboration was amazing because there were actually these unique perspectives. And I basically provided some text and Andreas was like, okay, Rene, let's have a couple of phone calls. Let me ask you questions. And then we discussed it back and forth, and then Andreas came back and he's like, yeah, I have a new version of the text. Look, it's better English, it's better examples, it's better understandable. I'm reading the text, I'm like, yep, it's better text, right? So we could basically improve and iterate on this. And it was just amazing to get the Sinatra contract and the prenup agreement that I have never thought of. And I would actually love for you, Andreas, if you could at least explain the prenup agreement right now, because I think this is really an amazing way to explain the kernel of a payment channel. Right? We don't have to explain the entire payment channel, obviously, but I think most people have seen something of it, so maybe you can, I don't know.
Yeah, so if you have an idea of how payment channels work, if you don't, follow along. Before you start a payment channel, you and your channel partner have to commit money, either both or one of you has to commit money into what's called a 2 of 2 multi-signature address. And that means that once you put that money in, you both have to sign to get it back out. Now, why would you do that? It puts you in a very vulnerable position. If you put money in and the other person goes away, now you have a problem. You can't get your money back. Or if you put your money in and the other person goes, well, I'm not letting you take it out unless you give me 20%. So you open yourself to blackmail. And of course, Lightning is a protocol where you don't have to trust the other person. So how do you do that? And it's really simple. It's exactly the same as a marriage. You do a prenup agreement, a prenuptial agreement. So before you enter the marriage, you prearrange your divorce. And you say, if it all goes to shit, here's how we're going to split things up. Sign this transaction that pays me back now. And once you sign this transaction, I can then put money into this address because if anything goes wrong, I have the exit clause already planned. So we use that example. There's also an example that we call the Frank Sinatra clause, which is Frank Sinatra is famous for putting in his will a statement that said, this is my will, and if any of my heirs attempts to contest my will, they are out of the will. And that's known as the Sinatra clause, and it took a long time in legal circles to say, like, is this actually legal? Can you do this? Turns out you can in some jurisdictions. So payment channels work like that, which is, we're in this together, but if you try to cheat, I take the entire balance, you're out. So that's the Sinatra clause for payment channels. So we try to use these simple examples, but for me, this is about a philosophy of learning, which is that if you're trying to teach something, and the people who are trying to learn feel smart and good about learning something new rather than intimidated, then you've done a good job. So with Mastering Bitcoin, with Mastering Ethereum, sorry, the second book that shall not be named, and Mastering Lightning, the goal for me was the first 3 chapters should start really simple, easy, build up the technical understanding. And at some point you're going to start skipping parts because maybe you're not a software engineer, maybe you're not a computer scientist, this is not your core area of expertise. That's okay. You'll still get something useful out of it. And when you get that moment where you go, oh, now I understand how this works. I've heard about this so many times in Bitcoin, or I've heard about this in Lightning. I never understood it before. Now I get it. You feel, yes, I learned something new today. And then when you go and read it again later, maybe you skip all of chapter 4 about, you know, elliptic curve, and you're like, ugh, math. And then you come back a year later and you're like, hey, now I can understand even more from this chapter. So with the Lightning Network book. The first 3 chapters, accessible to any audience that's slightly technically inclined. You can watch and follow along. Chapters 4 and 5 for those who want to run a node and kind of stretch their comfort and learn something new. And then from chapter 6, it starts getting a bit uncomfortable. And that's okay. And you can get all the way into what I hope to see with these books is, this is the book I wish I had when I started this journey. And if the next person who comes behind me has this book, they're going to have an easier journey than we did, trying to learn it from scratch. So that's how we try to ramp it up.
Awesome. I mean, the 2 examples you stated sound like Andreas is the right guy to break it down to simple terms. So I'm really looking forward to read this book together with my wife, potentially. The next question I would have is, not that many Lightning Hack days ago, Lightning was still considered reckless. And what does it look like, or what does it feel like from an author's perspective to write a book on a moving target?
Well, I mean, first of all, Lightning still is reckless.
Yep, absolutely.
Right? I mean, we should be very clear about this. The stories already this evening I heard from people telling me about, oh yeah, I have this node and I'm not sure if I can get my Bitcoin out because I'm just not sure for reasons, right? So things are tricky here.
I just changed phones a week ago. I have not been able to recover my Lightning wallet. My mobile Lightning wallet on that phone, as far as I know, is gone. So about a couple $100, you know, is gone. I don't know if I'm going to be able to recover it. And the problem with these things, when you say hashtag reckless, is like, you know, I can go and tell this story at the next 10 conferences and I'll be like, you know, I lost a mobile wallet with $200, and then I'll go to the next conference like I lost a mobile wallet with $600 in it, and then I'll go to the next conference like I lost a mobile wallet with $7 million in it. Shit happens, yeah, reckless.
So yeah, but I would argue this is especially a reason why people need a book, right? Because in that sense, people can understand why this is a tricky technology, right? There's a clear difference between Bitcoin and Lightning. Right? Bitcoin is to some degree, very simple protocol, right? I'm not saying it's simple, but it's much simpler than Lightning, obviously, right? Because Lightning builds on top of Bitcoin. And Bitcoin has a very single use case. Basically make this transaction, right? Lightning is much more sophisticated, a lot more things can go wrong. And people who use Lightning should be aware of this, right? And what I would try to achieve, and I think Andreas is with me on this, is that people get basically, now I'm missing the English word, educated or sophisticated about this, right? They know the choice that they're making, and be cautious.
Yeah, I would say that things have changed a lot in the last year. So when we started writing, well, 2 years, when we started writing the book, there were really no Lightning wallets that allowed you to use them without doing your own channel management and setup, which is complicated. Backups were problematic, still are in some cases. So in those 2 years, now there are wallets that are really easy to use, that will handle inbound liquidity, that will handle channel management. You don't even need to know the details. You might pay a small fee, but really not that big a deal. So even while we're writing this, Lightning is moving so fast. And I'm going to bring up the book that nobody wants to talk about, but I'll say it anyway. I had this experience with Ethereum. It was a moving target. It was moving so fast while I was writing the book. And that is very different from how development works in Bitcoin. In Bitcoin, development is super conservative. It has to be. It is the infrastructure for this massive economy. It has to be super conservative. Super sound money, absolutely. But the price you pay for that is that developers have their hands tied. You have to work lockstep with everybody else on the consensus rules. Doing an upgrade like Taproot takes 2 years of planning, 3 years of testing, and then massive coordination, and you're like, maybe this is the last soft fork we'll ever see. Maybe we won't be able to coordinate enough to do another one. One of the things I love about Lightning, Lightning moves at the same speed as technologies like Ethereum. The development in Lightning is super exciting, and one of the reasons is Lightning developers do not need to work in perfect coordination on consensus rules. You can have features that exist on the network that only some clients support. You can have features that other clients do not support. You can upgrade a feature, and if you're the only one doing it, that's okay. And that means that we have a lot more room to experiment and play with new things and try things out. And so with the Lightning Network, things were moving even faster, and I kind of miss that. I love that. I think it's a wonderful environment for developers, and I know a lot of the developers who work in the Lightning protocol enjoy that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant, because in Lightning and on layer 2, there's always the next great and potentially game-changing thing that's around the corner. Like we have next up, coming up, Bolt 12. We have exciting things like Pickhardt payments, which are just around the corner. And at some point, you needed to draw a line. Did you consciously decide on, some feature or bold where you said, okay, this is it. We are covering this now and focus on this, and the next thing will be covered in the second edition?
So I think in general, when you write a book, of course you need to draw a line, right? I mean, that's clear.
Or your publisher will draw it for you.
Yeah, also true.
Often that's how it ends up happening.
I think the question you're asking is, how did we draw the line? And you know, I have to say, honestly, I don't even know. It magically converges somewhere, right? You have so many iterations, so many discussions. At some point in time, you know that's the scope, and that's, at least in our opinion, after thinking about this for 2 years, and I have to say, Andreas and I had almost daily phone calls for this. At least not all the 2 years, but on a very long time, with a lot of discussions, right? I'm not saying that's why we're the only people who understand this protocol and book, but of course we have at least put a significant amount of time of brain power into this, and we had at some point in time the moment where we said, this is the scope for now. And it will go through tech review, and it will go through publishing, and probably by the moment it's out, I'm like, we're missing this, why did we cover this, right? It's just impossible, right? But that's the nature. I mean, it's technology, it's moving fast. If you open a MySQL book from 19-something, right? I mean, you're going to be smiling, right? So that's the reality.
Yeah, it's there's a saying. It's a bit like how they say painting the Golden Gate Bridge. They say that the Golden Gate Bridge is perpetually painted. The crews start painting on one end, and when they reach the other end, they just go back to the beginning and start painting again. With these books, they're a constant work in progress. First of all, there are mistakes, and these mistakes get fixed. There's 120 contributors to this book so far. I bet there's going to be another 100 by the time it hits print. And then as soon as it hits print, it's already obsolete, and then we have to start working on the second edition. And in the meantime, you know, as you all know, Taproot got locked in for activation in November. Woohoo!
Yeah, the entire protocol changes now.
Yeah, which means that now I have to do Mastering Bitcoin 3rd edition to add Taproot there, and then immediately start on updating for L2 in a year's time when it hits the Lightning protocol. No, maybe L2 isn't going to be ready, but Ductless Payments,
PTLCs, yeah.
A new payment channel protocol based on Taproot. I think we're going to see P2TR channels.
Yeah, PTLCs mainly.
And PTLCs, yeah. So all of those things are moving very, very fast. I think in the end what we did was we focused on what is in production today that you can actually use, and then give a little picture of what's coming next. Oh, hey, there's also this, and there's also that. So there's a bit of a mention, of course, of Pickhardt payments, but which barely made it because we Rene just demonstrated in production 2-3 weeks ago, not even. So some new pathfinding inventions, but also other technologies that we're looking a bit further out, like I mentioned, Ductless Payments and L2 and things like that.
I think what we tried to achieve is we tried to mainly focus on the principles of how stuff works, right? Not so much on every specific detail. There's one thing I wanted to mention, that's why I basically grabbed the microphone. There's currently a group in Atlanta who are doing a book reading club of Mastering Lightning. We were not involved in this, but they meet weekly on Discord and they read one chapter after another. And for me, it's midnight till 2 o'clock in the morning, and I join those meetings because I like the feedback, right? We're still in production, basically. There's still tech review. And of course, I see how people perceive the book. I see what is understood, what is not understood. Since this is the German community and this is my time zone, if you want to start doing this right now, this would be awesome, honestly, because, you know, I mean, I don't know, when is the tech review due? When do we have to have like the final version? It's in October or something?
I think it's going to be in about 5 weeks.
Yeah, so if you guys are starting reading this, I mean, it's open on GitHub anyway, and you start having the discussions, I mean, you can make pull requests, you can get your name, and you can make changes, right? So, I mean, now is a very good moment to actually do this. If you do this in 3 months, well, then the book is on print, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to mention for all of those who are here who have not seen how we do books in this space. So the first license that this book is available under is Creative Commons Attribution, non-commercial, non-derivative. So that's CC BY NC ND. What that means is that you can read the book for free online on GitHub. It's on github.com/lnbook. It has been available since we started writing the first paragraph. You can actually look at week by week or day by day how the book progressed, and don't look at the early parts, it's really ugly. It really is. So it's available for free to read, to share, to redistribute, to contribute, etc. We have an agreement with O'Reilly, which is the same thing I did for Mastering Bitcoin, which at the time was revolutionary for O'Reilly and for publishing in general. 1 year after publication, if all goes well, we're going to be changing the license to a attribution share-alike. At that point, the book can be translated, derivatives can be created, you can do mashups, you can create training courses, university curricula, and you can translate it and redistribute it commercially if you want, in German, for example. So Mastering Bitcoin and other books have been translated into German. So this is not a book that only exists on print. In fact, print usually is the lagging version. It exists online. It's a live resource that is part of the community, that is gifted to the community, and that will continue to live if it's maintained by the community and in as many languages as possible. So I would very much like to see a German edition. I speak 4 languages. Unfortunately, German isn't one of them, so I apologize for forcing you to listen to English today. But I would love to see that. Mastering Bitcoin has been translated into 31 languages so far. And that's not because of anything I did. It was all done by the community.
Awesome. That's great to hear. That sounds like everything we love about books combined with everything we love about Lightning, combined with everything we love about open source. So this is a great effort. And to second René's point, at Einundzwanzig we got a book club, and I proposed that the next book that should be discussed is Mastering the Lightning Network. So Markus, Patrick, Yoko, this one's on you. I can see Yoko smiling already. All right, so if it's okay with you, for the last 10 minutes, I'd like to switch gears and talk about something different than the book, but also about Lightning. And we already discussed that Lightning still is a challenging topic for users. What's on the horizon? What's the one thing you see coming for Lightning that will change this from the user's perspective, bring better user experience? What will be the game changer here in your point of view?
Can I take this one?
Yeah, okay, start off.
All right, so I want to tell you about this amazing new thing that's coming for Lightning. It's called Pickhardt Payments, and Rene doesn't call it that because he's too humble, but I certainly like to call it that. So over the past 2 years, Rene has been doing some amazing research on the technology of pathfinding. And bear with me while I describe your invention, because I'm the explainer, right? So for those of you who understand a bit about Lightning, Lightning is payment channels between two nodes, and then if you link those together, you can make a path through the network to send a payment to someone you're not directly connected to. Now, in the beginning, when you first think about this, you think, okay, the problem is find a path from A to B. If you look at a map of the Lightning Network today, the problem is not find a path from A to B. The average connectivity of a node is 8 channels. There's 16,000 nodes, 56,000 channels. Not only does a path from A to B exist, 10,000 paths exist from A to B. So the question is, which one? And how do you get large amounts through a network like that? And that is a problem that has not been solved until a few weeks ago and really caused a big difficulty. On the Lightning Network, we can do very small payments, very, very fast, quite effectively. But if we try to do a big one, it chokes. And so what Rene did with his research is he found a way to take a payment and using multipath find out how to split it into the optimal number of paths and number of parts to flow it through the network. And I believe you sent 0.345 Bitcoin over 350 different channels and paths simultaneously from one side to the other. It's an incredible invention. It's going to completely transform what the Lightning Network can do. So please give him a round of applause.
Okay, so first of all, thanks for the kind words.
You're welcome.
Shout out to Stefan Woodgo from the German community. Some people know him. He helped a lot on the last mile of this, and it was an amazing time to work with him on this. That being said, the Pickhardt payments worked. It really did. We delivered this payment, but while doing so, we discovered many problems that exist on Lightning that people were kind of aware before, but become much more visible right now. One big problem, for example, is Ductless Payments. You might have seen this. You try to send a payment to somebody, and then nothing happens for 2 hours because some node decides to keep your HTLC. It's just being stuck in the network. Nothing you can do about it. Currently on the Lightning Network, we can't cancel a payment. You can do a repayment, but then you might pay twice, right? So when you find the optimal split and you send out 300 onions and one just gets stuck somewhere on the network, that's really bad. Luckily with Taproot, we can have PTLCs and we can make cancelable payments. Still, a lot of side problems are coming. So what I want to say here is, while we now know how to find the liquidity and find the correct paths, there's still a lot of challenges to the protocol. So please be kind of like patient with this and give the developers a little bit of time because there's still a lot of like work in progress on the protocol side.
So someone, when I was having a beer out here, told me, are you displaying like your zero base fee, support for zero base fee? Can you explain that? Someone came and told me that, and I was like, what? What is zero base fee? Is this kind of like a new laser eyes thing? Do I have to wear a special hat? What the hell is this with the trends? So it's something related to the Pickhardt payments.
Drop the base!
Yeah,
Drop the base, is that the correct term? Zero base fee.
We explained it in a German podcast. So I think everybody here who has heard about this before knows why it's important. So in general, if you want, even nowadays, find the cheapest way to deliver a payment, it's for a computer extremely hard to compute this because of the base fee. For stupid, subtle mathematical reasons. For those who are mathematicals, basically the base fee has a nonlinear jump from 0 to 1. Right? When you set 0 satoshis along a channel, you have no fee, and then when you send 1 satoshi, the base fee is there. So this makes the function nonlinear, and the problem becomes NP-hard. So in general, we do ourselves a big favor if we just drop the base fee. And there was a community member, Marcus, who basically listened to the podcast and was like, hey, here's a screenshot of my Lightning node. I just set all my channels to 0 base fee. And Stefan and I, we had a phone call and we were like, yeah, we wrote the paper and we didn't set our channels to 0 base fee.
I have not set mine to 0 base fee either. Yeah.
Bitfinex recently did, and
yeah.
we have 25% of all channels on the Lightning Network who already set 0 base fee.
I just finally...
I
just finally got my node to where it can sit for a few months without me having to do maintenance on it. So I'm like, I'm afraid to SSH into it. Like, I'm not. I don't want to touch it.
But the good news is, if you look at the 0 base fee graph, it's getting more and more connected, and it's also a great signal because you see all the enthusiasts, all the people who really care about Lightning. There are some business, and of course they need more time in order to do this, and that's fine. But you can already do experiments on the 0 base fee graph, and it's just amazing to see this, and I can only encourage people to do this. You're basically not losing anything. In fact, what will happen is, once you have these optimal payments, activity will increase. I mean, imagine, nowadays you can send 2 millibitcoin, 3 millibitcoin on the Lightning Network, and then it's getting tricky. Well, we did 350 millibitcoin, so on your routing fee, you will earn more, right? So you're doing yourself a favor, you're doing everybody else a favor. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be explained at some point in time better. I will probably make a video at some point in time.
With a marketing campaign and a slogan and a hat.
That's the funny thing. People are already saying, Rene, what is about your 0 base fee campaign? That's not my campaign. It's the people from Einundzwanzig who started this.
I can help with that. I'm good at campaigns. So, but by the way, if you invent something new in Lightning, before you announce it, please call me and ask me what it should be named. Okay? No more SegWit. No more terrible names, please, in this industry. We have enough.
This is not going to work. This is permissionless technology.
Oh, it's free. I'm just going to give you some good advice, like a better name than SegWit. Like segregated witness. The first time I went and talked at a conference about segregated witness, a prosecutor from the US government came up and said, that sounds like a witness protection program. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, even though I can understand, I'm going to give you a hard time on that. And
please do. That's
yeah,
okay.
I mean, the fact that you don't know about this 0 base fee initiative means one thing to me. You should be listening to more German podcasts. For one, this is Einundzwanzig, which is the biggest German Bitcoin podcast.
Yeah.
And then it's the whole...
Do you have 21 people in your audience? Is that where it's
yes, yes. And then there's the Honigdachs podcast, which has 20 people in its audience, which is the second biggest podcast. Okay, nevertheless, how many time have we got left? Yeah, let's do this, so I don't have to ask the questions.
The reason that Andreas didn't know about 0 base fee is I didn't tell him, and we had to finish the book. So that is fair.
I've been hiding in a cave writing.
Awesome. Who's got a question? Yeah, I guess you have to come over here because, yeah, or like that.
Oh my God, it does.
So Andreas is officially onboarded now.
Okay, hi, I'm here. I'm Till, and I have a question to Andreas. What was your intention to write about Ethereum?
No, I'm not going to do that today. Not here. let me have one day of fun. Okay, so I was and I am still very much interested in the idea and the implementation of a virtual machine-based blockchain. And so I wrote about the technology. It wasn't investment advice. I didn't abandon Bitcoin. And I don't really believe in this idea that we should not explore technology and ideas that are competitive with what our primary interest is out of fear. I am very, very confident in Bitcoin, and that confidence in Bitcoin allows me to explore as much as I want and enjoy that exploration without fearing this kind of dogmatic approach.
I'm Alex. I have a question for Andreas. What on regulation? We see some positive signs and some critical signs, especially regarding anonymity and KYC. So it's mixed signals. What do you think will happen? Will it be very restrictive? Will it be positive? Will it be enabling? What's your take?
I think the answer to mixed signals is transaction mixing. Transaction coin join and Lightning Network and more. I think it's really, really important that we promote more privacy in the base protocol of Bitcoin. I don't think it's enough, honestly. And we know that the technology exists and other blockchains have implemented things like zero-knowledge proofs and rigged signatures and many advanced privacy technologies. That space has moved very fast over the last few years. I don't think we should be afraid to do courageous things, even if they require a hard fork, in order to implement stronger privacy and strong anonymity with zero-knowledge proofs in Bitcoin. I would very much like to see that. If not, then unfortunately we're going to see a lot of the people who need anonymity, people who are activists, who are fighting against dictators and regimes and things like that, will have to choose other technologies because it will be too dangerous to use Bitcoin. I hope one of the technologies they'll choose is the Lightning Network, which will give them better privacy, but still, we can't just do privacy on the second layer. We need privacy on the base layer of Bitcoin as well.
Which coin join implementation?
Sorry?
Which coin join implementation?
Which coin join implementation? I don't know. Unfortunately, there's too much controversy there for me to give an opinion. There's a lot of fighting between different implementations, and I don't want to take sides. All of them, one after the other, but don't mix the change.
What was it like collaborating with a guy who speaks 900 words a second?
Since I watched all my YouTube videos in X2, it worked.
So for those of you who don't know, the Lalo Shatokan speaks like a Gatling gun. It is unbelievable. I wish we had, who is it who types really fast and does the transcripts? Brian Bishop, yes. I wish we had Brian Bishop to do transcripts while Lalo. Like one day I would like to see a match-off between Lalo speaking and Brian Bishop typing to see who will win. I think Lalo will win, unfortunately, yes. It is tricky at times, but one thing I will tell you is you do get used to it after a while, and if you really concentrate, which is difficult for me, I have a certain attention deficit issues. If you really concentrate, you can actually learn to listen at the speed that Lalo speaks.
All right, Rene, did you still want to make that remark about?
So I was recently in a Twitter space and people discussed coin joins and Lightning, and it was really remarkable because that person said something like, it was basically a rant. It was like, I hate it if people do coin joins and later on go to KYC regulated exchanges because they're basically reducing the anonymity set of everybody else in the coin join. But at the same time, that person proposed to use coin join outputs to open payment channels. So, I mean, if you run a Lightning node, you should be aware of the fact that all the transactions that are happening are bound to your identity. So I just wanted to give the remark, while Lightning produces some privacy, I'll just leave it like this.
All right. So, one more question.
Hi. Rene just said it. My question is about privacy with Lightning. So right now, every user that runs a node has to use onion routing, otherwise, or the onion routing network. Otherwise, his IP address might be associated with his capacity. What are the next steps for privacy in the Lightning network?
What are
the next steps for privacy?
So the Lightning Network has a lot of layers of privacy. So you can present your primary listening interface of your node through Tor, through the onion routed network. Excuse me one second. Tor. Woo! I came wearing my Tor t-shirt. So the Tor network, which I'm a huge supporter of. So you can use Tor to present your node interface. Now, every connection your node makes to any other node is encrypted by the Lightning encrypted transport system, the noise protocol. And on top of that, the routing of payments happens with another onion routed protocol on top. So Lightning has several layers of encryption and privacy. The problem is the onboarding and settlement parts of Lightning leak information. And they leak a lot of information. Taproot's going to make that better by allowing us to hide the settlement of channels and make them pay to Taproot so they look like single payments. This is a very technical answer. I apologize if this is not your area of expertise. And again, that is not enough. The fundamental problem we have, and we will keep running into this fundamental problem, is that the Bitcoin blockchain itself leaks far too much information and is too easy to surveil. And we should make it harder for those assholes.
Yeah, I think it's a good note to end on. Yeah. So, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks to Rene and thanks to Andreas. I really enjoyed this fireside chat. So, everyone enjoy the rest of the conference.